Joining us now for World Brief and the review of some of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world is Adefemi Akinsanya. Good morning, Adefemi.
Good morning, Dr. Rubin. Good morning, Ayo, and good morning, Rufai. Ayo, we had a wonderful weekend, did we not?
Yes, we did.
I
gave you your flowers off air. I'll give it to you on air to say, well done. You are an excellent friend. You were organizing things and just standing strong.
Yeah, we were all there in support of OG's sister's wedding. All of us in our gold ashwabi as OG's girls. We had a wonderful time, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
Morning to you viewers. Let me tell you what is happening around the world. Well, the Trump administration is recalling nearly 30 career diplomats from ambassadorial and other senior embassy posts as it moves to reshape the US diplomatic posture abroad with personnel deemed fully supportive of Donald Trump's America First priorities. Africa is the continent most affected by the removals, with ambassadors from 13 countries being removed. They include Burundi, Cameroon, Cape Verde, Gabon, Cote d'Ivoire, Madagascar, Mauritius, Niger, Nigeria, Rwanda, Senegal, Somalia, and Uganda. So we were just hearing from Panaranam's Benjamin's report earlier today, which featured the US ambassador to Nigeria. And according to this report, he has now been recalled as of midnight this morning. So very interesting aspects happening there. Clearly, Donald Trump wants a little bit of a reshuffle to make sure his international posts are filled with loyalists. Sounds familiar. Now, moving on to another story. A group of US lawmakers, as we've already seen, held a meeting in Abuja calling on the federal government to do more to protect all Nigerians. Now, the 5 congressmen alongside I guess we can call him now former US ambassador to Nigeria, Richard Mills, held a press conference where they shared their thoughts on the international support needed to support Nigeria's security offering. Now, this is in the aftermath of course, United States designating Nigeria a country of particular concern last month against a backdrop of claims of a genocide against Christians here in Nigeria. The group of congressmen also confirmed that the recent tightened visa restrictions against Nigeria and a host of other countries are something that the US ambassador said is a move to strictly address the lapses in Nigeria's border control. So we'll see what that manifests into. Now, talking of the United States, the US Coast Guard is pursuing another sanctioned oil tanker in the Caribbean Sea. This is intensifying the Trump administration's targeting of vessels connected to the Venezuelan government. Now, if you look at these images, you can see that the pursuit is ongoing, and it comes after the US administration announced on Saturday that it had seized a tanker for the second time in less than 2 weeks. The vessel, flying a false flag and under a judicial seizure order, is part of Venezuela's illegal sanctions evasion network. That's according to a US official. Notably, the United States has seized 2 tankers in recent days after President Donald Trump ordered a blockade of sanctioned oil tankers entering and leaving Venezuela. However, Venezuela's government have condemned the US actions as international piracy, and they have vowed to take legal action against the US. It has been pressuring Venezuela, that is America, citing concerns over oil investments and drug trafficking. So a lot happening there. And then we have this issue with Epstein. It is bombshell after bombshell. That's as US Democrats have complained that at least 16 files have disappeared from the US Justice Department's public webpage for documents relating to Jeffrey Epstein, including a photograph showing President Donald Trump less than a day after they were posted. Now, the missing files, which were available on Friday, included images of paintings depicting nude women and a series of photographs along a credenza and in drawers. One image showed Trump alongside Epstein, Melania Trump, and Ghislaine Maxwell. The Justice Department has not explained why the files were removed, but stated that photos and other materials will continue being reviewed and redacted consistent with the law in abundance of caution as they receive additional information. Now, Democrats on the House Oversight Committee have demanded transparency as the episode has fueled speculation about what was taken down and why the public was not notified ahead of time. Well, finally, our last World Brief story. French President Emmanuel Macron has given the official go-ahead to build a new nuclear-powered aircraft carrier during a visit to French troops in the United Arab Emirates. The new carrier, which will weigh nearly 80,000 tons and be around 310 meters long, is expected to enter service in 2038 with a crew of 2,000 and a capacity for 30 fighter jets. This is as Macron emphasizes the need for France to be strong in order to be feared in the age of predators. Those were his words. Now, the announcement comes despite budgetary constraints in France, as well as criticism from some military officials who question prioritizing the project amid fears of a European war with Russia. However, Macron's visit to the United Arab Emirates aimed to strengthen bilateral ties between the countries, particularly in security, cooperation, artificial intelligence, and trade. Well, those were your World Brief stories. Let's take a look at our newspaper headlines from across the globe. As ever, we begin with the front page of This Day here in Nigeria. And let's kick off our reporting with the news that the federal government has secured the release of the remaining 130 students and teachers abducted from St. Mary's Catholic School in Papari, Niger State. That is bringing the total number of freed persons to 230. The Punch does report that Dangote Petroleum Refinery has begun nationwide sales of petrol at 739 naira per litre through MRS oil filling stations, a move expected to ease festive season pressure, stabilise fuel supply and provide relief to consumers. Let's take a look at our leadership paper this morning. So the leadership reports that the National Assembly will vote on 44 constitutional amendment bills on December 23rd, which is tomorrow, Tuesday, covering key reforms, many of them, but a few of them focus on local government autonomy, electoral reforms, judicial independence, and state policing. Let's take a look at the Vanguard. We've got the Vanguard. Wonderful. So the Vanguard is reporting that some Nigerian women are resorting to unsafe, low-cost hair care alternatives such as detergent and dishwashing liquid and soda soap due to rising living costs and expensive salon services. Very interesting there. Also on the side here, we're hearing that Lagos port stakeholders have criticised the reintroduced Etoru e-call-up system. They've accused the Nigerian Ports Authority and security agencies of extortion, racketeering and unlawful cargo detention. So very interesting things happening with the ports there. Our picture headline has AFCON opening ceremony, which took place in Rabat, Morocco. You've got Nigeria's Davido and Morocco's French Montana performing at the opening ceremony, and the AFCON soundtrack is what they performed. Moving on to the New Telegraph this morning, let's take a look at what the New Telegraph have for us. Now, it does report that the US and Nigeria have signed, this story just here, the United States and Nigeria have signed a 5-year, $2.1 billion health partnership to strengthen Nigeria's healthcare, focusing on faith-based facilities and targeting HIV, tuberculosis, malaria, polio, and maternal and child health. Now, Nigeria will contribute nearly $3 billion with US funding conditional on meeting national interest goals. Let's take a look at the Daily Sun. There's a story coming out of the Daily Sun that looks at the issue. Let's take a look at the Daily Sun. Do we have on the screen? Wonderful. Okay, so this story just here, looking at the Enugu state government. So they have reaffirmed its ownership of a disputed Abuja property in Wuye district. Now, they have cited multiple documents and investigations by the police and the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. They state that accused Simon's Ventures Nigeria Limited, they're accusing them of attempting to fraudulently claim the land using forged documents, insisting that the plot was duly allocated to the Enugu state government and has never changed ownership. So that's a story just there. Moving on to the Daily Independent. The Daily Independent has a few stories, but what we will look at is Nigeria's 58.18 trillion naira 2026 budget, and it is facing risks from a large deficit, high debt cost, and uncertain non-oil revenues. Analysts are stressing that disciplined borrowing and effective revenue reforms are key to sustaining growth and fiscal credibility. Let us take a look at the Daily Telegraph of the United Kingdom. Okay, wonderful. So the Daily Telegraph is saying that the chairman of the Equality and Human Rights Commission has attacked those who describe migration as a risk to Britain. And then he goes on to say that the independent police sex offence convictions have soared by more than a third since the murder of Sarah Everard at the hands of a serving police officer, Wayne Cousins. So those are your two British papers underneath a whole host of Nigerian ones and your World Brief stories. Love to hear your thoughts.
Real quickly. The Epstein files is a treasure trove of a lot that will spell disaster for this administration. That's why they've redacted most of the documents. We finally said we wanted to see the Epstein file. Yes. They redacted it. I also hear, I think the Guardian was reporting this morning that those files are not on the DOJ's website any longer. So they've taken it back. They want to redact more. So it shows their life. In fact, they redacted up to a whole page. You see, the truth will come out someday. Maybe if it doesn't come out, if Trump can wriggle his way through while he's in power, when he leaves power and another government comes out, they will release the full Epstein file. All of those that were involved. Because I can see President Clinton also. So it doesn't show that everybody is a saint. And we would like to have seen that person that was sitting on President Clinton's lap and will ask, who was that person? Was that Chelsea? Obviously, it was not Chelsea. So we will see, and the truth will come out. As regards France, I see why people are really prodding at Macron for saying, yes, you want to build a nuclear, power fleet at the point in time, aircraft carrier at the point in time, because a lot of people will have argued that you needed that funds to be on ground, to be able to blitz scale what you have on ground, because there's a possibility of war in Europe at some point. Let's stop deceiving ourselves. And I'll take you back historically in the 1930s. I remember when, as enunciated in history, when Hitler first took Sudetenland, and Neville Chamberlain then said, let's give him Sudetenland, a portion of Czechoslovakia then, saying that if you give him that portion, he will make peace. No. Once Hitler took Sudetenland, he will be emboldened. If Europe doesn't fight him to a standstill in Ukraine, afterwards he will be emboldened, and he'll want to take some other parts apart from the Caucasus, and he's going to march all over Europe. And that's what I say. So you need to be able to plan a long time. Aircraft carrier in modern warfare, probably I think it was only the Americans that have that latitude of aircraft carriers and everything. Modern warfare has become more nimble and agile. You're having more drones. You're having the likes of Bayraktars, that can change the order of the warfare in terms of aerial warfare. Not just an aircraft carrier that you can launch about 30 fighter jets for. In fact, even fighter jets in modern warfare, increasingly their roles are becoming little. I mean, Ukraine didn't have a lot of fighter jets, but you can see what they are doing with drones attacking into Russian territory. So we should also look at that. America has been chasing Venezuela. Once Maduro came in, they started. You remember after the elections of Enrique Capriles, they had started and they're attacking oil assets. It's just a continuation of that. What Trump wants is that he feels that you can have a government in Caracas that is subservient to him so that they'll be able to use it as a manipulation for oil. That's just what he's doing. That's why he's putting his own people, his own loyalists there now, because most of these lawmakers, most of these ambassadors were people that were put in during the time of Biden, and he feels that they are not hawks. So it's a new tide of the world, and let's see how this pans out.
All right, let me talk about the recall of the U.S. ambassadors to about 30 countries. It's a developing story, so in terms of details, it's still emerging. But what we know is that Nigeria is one of those countries, and that a significant number of those countries, about 13 of them, are in Africa. And so there's a disproportionate number of people when you look at percentage of Africa, from Asia, Europe, but you see countries that Trump has almost shown a lack of respect towards in recalling. Now, the reason for this recall, as has been said initially, is as a result of the America First policy.
Yes.
So having people who align with President Trump's America First policy, especially with regards to trade, bilateral relationships in these countries. It's a departure from what would normally exist in U.S. relations or foreign policy, whereby career diplomats or career ambassadors are usually not recalled even after a change of government. There's a difference between career ambassadors who are, as the name implies, who have a career in this and have worked significantly in this area. While for political appointees, you can say that they are sympathetic or loyal or aligned with the particular individual or president who's appointed them. Of course, as you would imagine, a number of people have come out to speak in defense of this decision, saying that, as we say in Nigeria, it is a preserve and prerogative of the president to appoint ambassadors as they represent him, as they represent the nation. However, other foreign affairs experts have also come out to say, actually, it undermines what is usually the unspoken rule that for career diplomats, they are professional enough to keep politics aside from discharging their duties Hence, they're able to live out their tenure despite a change in government. But, I mean, Trump has said that he doesn't want them out there. There will be a reappointment. So 2 things to clarify. It's not saying that he's taking them away permanently. There's supposed to be a reappointment of ambassadors, a discharge of new ambassadors, but this will take a bit of time, especially because they have to go through congressional screening, and it's not going to be take a bow and go situation, and it could, potentially take months. Also, these ambassadors who have been recalled might not necessarily lose their jobs. What it means is that they continue to remain in service in the foreign service, but they have desk jobs. They've not yet been reassigned to another country. So implications here and there, just to break it down. I put this side by side with the story of the U.S. delegates coming to Nigeria, where we feel that the relationship between the U.S. and America, based on diplomatic engagements, is improving. Unfortunately, they say one thing, but the actions are different. So they come out and talk about how, it's not going to affect bilateral relationships with the U.S. and Nigeria because they respect our relationship with them, or boots on ground, or designation as a CPC is just to, to catalyze a response from Nigeria to deal with the issues. But then they go back and then different things begin to happen. And so it's quite interesting to see how this will play out. But I just want to establish the point that it doesn't mean that the U.S. is ending its relationship with Nigeria, but rather they want to have people who align with the President's America First policy in these particular countries.
Understood.
Okay, very quickly. There's a field of study that is called war studies. So I will speak within that context. So President Macron goes to the UAE on a bilateral visit, and he used that occasion to assure the French troops stationed in that area to say that France is going to spend more money on war issues.
Yes.
He has resolved now to increase defense spending because he says we live in turbulent times. He says we live in the age of predators when France must protect itself and defend itself and build its defense capabilities, especially at sea. And that's why now they want to build a new war fleet, aircraft fleet. They are also increasing defense spending. He's also planning to increase the number of reservists from 40,000 to 80,000, so that by 2030, what he suspects that the predators will do, France will be ready. All of a sudden, we're back to the 19th century, 1800 to 1899, when war was a major reality that the world knew. That was during the American Civil Wars. That was during the Napoleonic Wars. That was during the Ashanti-Fanti War. That was during the war in South Africa. That was the Haiti struggle for independence and attack on Santo Domingo. So, in other words, so as not to go into too much literature, to say that the world is looking for peace. But at the same time that we are looking for peace, the world is preparing for war, which raises a question about how prepared this so-called United Nations is prepared for war. The war fleet, the aircraft carrier that Macron wants to build, is going to cost over 100 billion euros. It's going to be bigger than Charles de Gaulle, which is the largest aircraft that France has at the moment, but it's not going to be as big as U.S. Gerald Ford, which is on duty between the Caribbean Sea and the North Pacific Ocean. So we say we are in peace, but the reality of war dogs us, whether it's in Europe or elsewhere. So we should be afraid about the future. That's one. Number two, to go quickly to Venezuela. Now, President Trump is putting Maduro under pressure. Maduro is talking about theft and kidnapping of their oil. Trump is saying these are sanctioned oil vessels. But in the process, in the last 1 month, 2 vessels have been attacked. About 100 persons have been killed. Trump is basically asking for regime change, and is saying that Maduro is the head of a cartel, which is called the Trento do Sol, the cartel of the sun, and you have that problem. So I don't think it will end. The United States will continue to put pressure on Venezuela, but Venezuela insists that this is about regime change all said and done, and that they are not going to capitulate to the United States. Venezuela has the largest oil reserve in the world. There are persons who have said this is also about energy war. It's about the resources of Venezuela and the United States behaving like a colonizing power, even if colonialism is not at the center of America's foreign policy process, as I was taught at the University of Maryland by Odin Carter III in our government and foreign policy class. Very quickly, the last issue about the Epstein files. Todd Blanche, who is the Deputy Attorney General of the United States, says it is laughable to think that there is a cover-up. After all, that Trump has not been accused of any wrongdoing, but that what was ordered by the court is that the victims need to be protected. Now, some of those files, after the backlash, have been returned, but a few of them have also been redacted. But he says there's nothing to worry about. But the general suspicion by the Democrats on the House Oversight Committee is to think that the Republican government is trying to protect Trump and is trying to cover up things. However, what is important is transparency and the right of the American people to know, which was what was sustained by the Act of Congress insisting that those copies should be published. Well, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Adefemi. We'll see you again tomorrow.